So I'm going to now move to the Chief Executive's report, and that's item 20 on the agenda. We'll deal with the Mayor's monthly report as well. There's a reason that I want to deal with these prior to moving into the Community Board reports. There are a number of people that are here for the downstream effects decision, obviously. And just to let you know that we'll probably deal with that at around 11:30 this morning. So, well, we have all of our community boards to present, and there are people who are still coming in for that, and they needed a definite time. So it won't be any earlier than that if we just stick to the existing agenda, because it's further down the agenda. We have got a number of community board reports, and we always put them first, but I'll move on to the Chief Executive's report. Thank you, Carleen.
Thank you for that. I'll take it as read, but I just want to point out a couple of things. One is the two surveys that are identified there, the Life in Christchurch Central City Survey and the Resident Survey, both of which are showing improvements. In particular, the Life in Christchurch Central City Survey shows that improvement in terms of the perception of the central city and in terms of its variety of services that are there. People coming into the city feeling safer for pedestrians and cyclists, and improvement in the satisfaction levels and positive perceptions of the central city environment. And I think that does reflect the work that the private sector and public sector have done in terms of really focusing on the central city and looking at the opportunities for it to become a much more vibrant and sustainable and prosperous area. A lot of people, of course, still haven't come back into the city, and I would really encourage them to do that. And parallel to that is the improvement in the resident survey, where virtually everything's gone up, save for the satisfaction with water, and that's really around the issues around chlorination when you look at the verbatim comments. So I'm just pleased to be able to say that things continue to improve, somewhat slower than we might like, but actually continue in the right direction. Thank you.
Do you want to refer to that?
Oh yes, and so just from the discussions, want to just add in a resolution a request that the Chief Executive provide advice to the Council as to the requirements for technology enhancements for the remaining community boardrooms by the end of September 2019. That's in terms of people being able to hear the conversations within the community board areas.
Thank you. Right, so are there any questions?
Yes, I had a question.
Yes, Yanni?
Thank you. I did raise concern about the New Brighton boardroom enhancements, and I just want to understand why we have to wait until September, given that the prioritisation has already occurred by the governance teams, as I understand it, and we're currently in the middle of a budget process. So can we hear back sooner than September so that we can have oversight? Because I'm really confused. Previously, when we've asked for microphones, we've been told it needs to be a formal council decision through the annual plan, and yet we've got 100k being spent on one boardroom while the others are waiting.
We can say by December 2019. There is a bit of work to do to understand, because each of the rooms are different and the technology requirements are different, to make it work, how we might manage that.
By September, not by the year.
Sorry, can I just check? If that's the case, then how the staff have prioritised New Brighton ahead of Linwood or other boardrooms?
I believe
if the work
that
hasn't been done.
I believe that is in relation to the fact that there are some acoustic issues for one of our council members, as is the case here in council, which is why we prioritise the council chamber for both the council member and for the community, obviously, to be able to hear. And both considerations were taken into account, I think, in terms of prioritising that particular ward. It was seen as urgent because you've got to be able to participate in the meetings as a community board member. So that was why...
we have the same issues at the service centre, and they have not been addressed for 20 years.
Yanni, that's accepted. We're requesting now a formal report for the balance of the requirements for technology enhancements.
Right, so can I just double check then? What budget is required? Do you have any idea as an organisation about what budget is required so that we can bring them up to a standard where people can hear?
No, so that's what the report will do. It needs to understand the particular technology issues for each of the rooms, which are very different, and then to cost that out. And then that will be
right, and no money
your
will be spent in
decision.
the meantime on other boardrooms.
No.
John, would you like to add to that?
Yeah. Thank you, Leanne. The part of the prioritisation process has been to align with other building developments in boardrooms, such as Fendleton or Papanui. The Banks Peninsula facilities were prioritised because there was a need to install SCAPE facilities because of remote access. There is a process underway upgrading Fendleton, so it would be wrong to say that there would be no component of any enhancement that was not going to happen over the next few months. Certainly, no new projects will be entered into until that report has been presented, but there are residual projects going on at the moment which we would not want to stop.
Yeah, I think we can acknowledge that we can acknowledge, Yanni, that your community board has raised this as an issue for a long time. Yeah, Sarah.
20 years.
Sorry.
We just need microphones.
And it's not a question of saying you just need microphones. Microphones don't actually amplify. You need amplifiers to make them work. So it isn't a simple process. And, you know, the thing is that you can debate this now, but I'd rather not. We're asking for a formal report back to council, and I think that's the best that I can do today. Sarah.
Yeah, I'd just like to note that, you know, because we have asked for a while, but we did, must have been about 2 years ago, actually, as a community board, the boardroom did get an upgrade. It didn't get microphones and amplifiers, but it did get a really nice paint job. It had the heating and roofing done, so the air conditioning unit. It had old bifold doors and things removed and was done up. It just didn't get microphones, so there has been some work.
Yeah, it needs amplifications, no question about that. Vicky.
I wanted to raise an issue, Carleen, and I just have to say how much I enjoy reading this report. It's really, really good, and the format is stunning. But I want to raise an issue that's not on here, and not because it should, but I would love it to be on a future one. And
you can have whatever
You're going to agree to whatever. Just say yes.
And that's the issue of the council shared equity scheme, which is supposed to go live on July the 1st, and just exactly where it's at, because it tends to sit in a subcommittee that doesn't get publicly reported. And just to an update on the $6 million scheme, because it's been a very, very long time.
Yeah, so it is a major scheme, important for the city, so it's be worth updating. Absolutely fine with that.
Yeah. Sorry, Tim. No, Phil.
On the shared equity scheme, so is the potential though for Christchurch to be able to have clearer discussions with central government to make sure, in fact, as does finally proceed?
We've got the money from central government.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So it's getting them to proceed.
Yeah, but it's not the central government. It's us.
Okay.
So,
It's the manager.
Thank you. So, Mike, I've got a question, Carleen, around the resident survey. So, just particularly in the area of parking, it seems from your report that it was really about the usefulness or how easy getting into parks on some of our streets was more of a concern than say any lack of parking. Is that because that
Yes,
there's no reference to a shortage of parking?
Yeah, my recollection was that it wasn't about the access to parking. It was more about some of the issues around safety and feelings around buildings and so forth. And the cost was in the verbatim comments. People also comment around the cost.
Thank you. So there wasn't like a strong concern about a lack of parking per se?
Not from my recollection, and I read all the verbatim comments around that.
Thanks, Colleen.
Anne?
It's more of a comment, actually. Just given the stunning architecture that we've got in our city, is there an opportunity for, as a question as well, Christchurch NZ to perhaps develop some kind of profile of our architecture in a tour, or to really, I guess, promote the city and what we're doing here and the amazing things that are happening? I think we could do something in that space.
It sounds like a useful thing to do as a architectural destination.
Yes, absolutely.
And then celebrate that.
Yes, yes.
Right, any other questions? Jimmy?
First one, regarding to the new community facility, I'm not sure what's the criteria you just highlight, you know, the Lingwood, the Poor Complex, and the new St. Albans Community Center. For instance, like Southwest, those
Yes, so these
multifunction
these are highlighted.
Lying here.
Sorry.
So what's the criteria?
Apologies. So these are only highlighted because they've reached some milestones.
Yes.
So the agreement around the concept design and agreement around the final design for St Albans Community Centre. So when that happens for Southwest, then that will be commented on. Although I think there is in here comment around that the community board has moved towards changing the reserve status of Kyle Park.
Okay. A second question is, what is the timeline for the public consultation for the possible cemetery and sports park in the Templeton area? You mentioned there will have public consultation will be coming soon. Just want to know timeline.
Yes, I'm sorry, I don't have that at the top of my head, but I can let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Pauline and then Glenn?
Yeah. The St Albans Community Centre, I believe that will be going out for tender and procurement very shortly, if not currently. So what are we honouring our climate change initiatives and our sustainability initiatives within that procurement for that centre? And what do we do if those measures add costs to an already really tight budget?
Yes. So I'm not sure if anyone can comment about that. You'll see the comments around the new procurement policy that actually absolutely has that at the centre of some of the decision making. I can't tell you specifically around the St Albans centre. I guess one of the challenges is balancing the cost of that, but on a whole of life basis, the costs are generally lower because of those extra things that you put in. So it would be, I guess, traversing the balance of those two things.
Right.
Can you? I don't know that anyone here can comment.
I don't know the specifics, I'm sorry, on St Albans, but I know that we do design it there, and we design above code. However, sometimes when we do have to do a little bit of value engineering to meet the budget, that maybe some of the things come in. So I think those options will come through, and hopefully we can fit them within budget.
That's good, because this is probably arguably the first building that we're signing off since we've put those things in place. So it'd be really good to actually stay informed about what's that journey, if we could. Thank you.
Sustainability on the stationary energy use, which is the built. Yeah, hopefully.
Glenn?
Thank you. Just over the midges, Carleen, were you provided with information of the experiences of the residents in Cuthbert's Road? So not only Shortland Street, but Cuthbert's Road as well.
You want some advice on that?
Oh yeah, whether you were given the information over the experiences of residents in Cuthbert's Road.
Right. I wasn't personally. I don't know, Dave, whether you've seen that.
No.
Yeah, I think there's more to this, so it might look positive for one resident, but certainly for others it's still a way to go.
It is an ongoing issue, and it's something that each year we have to try to keep improving.
Right.
And there's no one solution to it. There's a range of things that council is doing to try and reduce that, and there has been some reduction, but by no means are we finished. Yeah,
thanks. And I feel for Yanni, actually. He's been raising this for years, so over the previous matters.
Yeah, Phil.
Mine's just a comment, if I may, and thank you, Carleen, for your report. But I think it's really good that you've highlighted some of the magnificent achievements, really, which have happened, and Anne alluded to those. And like the art galleries and Blair Jackson's Australasian Award, it's just fantastic. So, and they are on Newsline, but it's great that you have reported them all here, as well as Alistair Pearson's team, and the heritage buildings, which have also won awards. So thank you for highlighting those for all of us.
Good. Right. Well, look, Aaron?
Just quickly, I didn't want to speak on any, just one thing. I realise this is actually the last report that you'll do. Are you going to say something?
I was going to move the resolution, but add one.
Okay. Yeah. So before you do, I'll just say thank you, Carleen.
You'll have an opportunity to. Yeah. So I'd like to add an additional resolution which acknowledges that this is Carleen's last council meeting as our Chief Executive, and to thank her on behalf of the whole council and the City of Christchurch for her role as our Chief Executive for the past 5 years. And so I'm going to move the resolution. Do I have a seconder? Dion Swiggs. And I'm just going to speak to the resolution and then invite others to as well. Yeah. So, sorry, I'm standing up. So 5 years ago, Carleen Edwards took on the most difficult and complex role in local government in New Zealand. There is no question about that. The challenges have been absolutely enormous. In that time, you've seen us through the settlement of one of New Zealand's largest insurance settlements in the country, and the reinstatement of our building consent authority status, which we'd lost a year before you had arrived. Your kindness to individuals will always be remembered here. People have spoken to me about the care and attention that you've taken in putting into relationships and always being available to staff. So that is very much appreciated from a governance perspective, because it is something that is always needed, and it's sometimes not easy to do. I remember you going around every section of the council's vast network and getting to know all of the crews on the ground when you first arrived. And I saw you in hard hats and high-vis vests and safety boots, just getting to know the intricacies of the organisation, which is vast. And I don't know that sometimes people realise just how significant a role the Chief Executives is, and in terms of how the council touches our lives in every respect. From the minute we sort of get out of bed in the morning, we have a shower to start the day, we turn on the tap to fill the jug, we walk on the footpaths or ride or drive on the roads, we walk in one of the parks or through the gardens, we clear the gutters and taking away the rubbish, to visiting the library or going to the concert at the town hall, going to sports grounds or going for a swim, and even visiting a loved one in a cemetery. There's just almost no part of our lives that don't in some way interact with the work of a city council. So I wanted to acknowledge that. I think the challenges that have been thrown at you would have daunted a lesser person. I know there have been issues, but all we can do is learn from them and make sure we always do better in the future. And I read your comments in the paper about the chlorine decision being the low point in your time here. There is actually no one around this table that wouldn't feel exactly the same way. And it must have been the hardest piece of advice the organisation has ever had to give. But as you know, none of us had any choice because we would have been ordered to otherwise. And then I think as you leave, you can actually see that there is an end in sight, which is by no small means down to your decision to put in place a water safety improvement program to lift the organisation's eyes out of the silos and create a holistic approach that prioritises the wellheads and now looks forward today to what is required beyond the wellheads. So that is in no small measure to you, Carleen, and the decision that you took as our Chief Executive. you can leave assured that we will return to pure, clear, unadulterated water. It is our intention to keep it that way. As you say, it is very much a part of our identity and who we are as a city. We all wish you well for the future, and we thank you for your service to the Christchurch City Council. Thank you.
Beautiful, thank you. Good.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to say anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say
I thought you were
no.
going to invite the rest of us.
Sorry?
Were you going to invite others to speak?
Sorry.
That's what you
Oh,
said at the start.
sorry. I apologise. Yanni.
Oh, cool. So I'll just start with the microphone issue, and then I'll just say a few words in response to it.
Yanni, please don't do that. Please, can we deal with this at the next meeting, please? Just speak to the final point of the resolution, please.
Well, okay, but there is another resolution on the thing,
Yes,
and it is my right to speak.
I understand that.
That's fine. I just really wanted to just acknowledge the effort that Colleen has put in as Chief Executive. You know, it's really interesting that Christchurch is regarded, is known for earthquakes, and especially me being overseas at the moment, people do relate to that. But to have to go through the earthquakes, the flooding, the fire, the terror attacks, that's just the most extraordinary set of circumstances a city has faced, I think, certainly just about anywhere in the world over such a short period of time. And so I can't imagine the stress and the huge difficulty to deal with those very complex, serious and significant things that have happened to us. So really, Colleen, I just wanted to extend a huge thank you and debt of gratitude for the extraordinary work that you've put in as our Chief Executive and what have been incredibly extraordinary times for our city. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, Aaron.
Yeah, I'll say thank you as well, Carleen. There's probably not a person in the city that hasn't complained since the quakes about something. Even yourself, I'm sure you drive to work some days having a mumble under your breath. And essentially, you're in charge of the second largest organisation in the South Island, and not a role that many people would want to pick up. They might think they would for 5 minutes and then do a reality check and not. And for me, the reality check was 100 days after February 22nd, when Mayor Ed Lee had invited our council to join them in San Francisco to talk about how you recover and move forward from a disaster. And they brought in a number of speakers from all over their country. We were quite surprised at the effort they'd put in, and it was because their city was so destroyed in 1906, and they got a lot of help, so they always offered to help every other city that went through something similar. And the one lesson that I'd learnt that I completely didn't agree with at the time, because I come from a different place, Christchurch, New Zealand, and that was that they said 5 years after New Orleans and every other disaster pretty much in the world, no one's left. All the CEOs change, all the heads of departments change, most of the elected officials change, the mayors are gone, the MPs get tuned out, all of this change. And I thought, yeah, maybe in your country, but not in mine. I was dumbfounded. I thought that would never happen in New Zealand. And of course it did. And it happens for a reason, and it's because of the amount of turmoil that any one place will go through when you go through the disasters. Well, we were only meant to have 20,000 of one event, and then it turned into all the others. And so for anyone to survive that, you've actually got to the end of your entire term, which is a miracle in itself. So, you know, I had to take a sabbatical. And no doubt others here will potentially feel the wrath of the public in October this year. They might not, depending on where they are. So that's how it goes. And if you put your hand up for public service, as you did, it needs to be really commended, because you will cop a lot of abuse in your job, and you did. and you're still here. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. One of the oddest things in the world is the public office for a public entity and the events industry are total worlds apart, but they do have one thing in common. Everyone you deal with is an expert. And you've had a few. You came into a public service after an emergency. We were recovering, so it wasn't business as usual. And I think it was more stimulating, certainly more stressful. And so I think you were the steady keel that we needed for a period of time, and I really do want to thank you for what you did for us. And I don't think people do realise how much that was needed at the time. And so, and it's very easy, people forget, you know, memory is a wonderful thing, but we all lose it. So I want to thank you very much for the work you've done, and all the best for the future. Cheers.
Jimmy and Andrew.
I was very impressed with the Colin, particularly your voice, can-do attitude. I'm very impressed, you know. And also, you are a bit quiet person, but you always do it, and then you talk. I still remember during the annual plan, you know, the submission time period, the Great Hornby Resident Association, on behalf of the people of Hornby, you know, particularly acknowledge your great achievement over the last 5 years. I do appreciate, particularly I struggling for the template Hornby, the kind of service center for several years, you know, from nothing to 20 hours, 20 hours increase to 30 hours, 30 hours to the full amount service, 40 hours. So I do appreciate, and also the appreciator, you know, over the last 5 years, we can see all those circumstances, environment, total difference. It's not a running business as usual, you know, but you overcome so many the kind of barriers, and lots of the community facility has been come out and open, like the central library, you know, and the town hall, etc. So great job on behalf of the people of culture to say thank you so much. Thank you.
Anne, and then Andrew.
Thank you, Carleen. I have always noticed that you've treated people with respect and dignity. And, you know, given the sort of challenges that you've had, that's incredibly a real credit to you. So thank you for that, and thank you for your calm and thoughtful manner, which has been a steadying influence here. And I think the work that you've done post our water situation has been astonishing in terms of the way you've brought the organisation along, and I think it's going to be held up as a national a leader in the national situation with water. So really appreciate all you've done, and thank you very much, and all the best.
Thank you. Andrew.
Thank you. Carleen, you certainly don't need me to remind you that being the Chief Executive of Christchurch City Council is a huge role and a very complex role as well. And that's in normal times. You joined us at a time that was anything but normal. 5 years ago, you must have looked at what was ahead, certainly as a challenge, but it must have been daunting, and I think some would say it was an unenviable set of tasks that you had ahead of you. And there were some huge challenges, some unprecedented challenges at that time that we faced as an organisation and that the city faced. But we've made significant progress with your leadership, and we've worked well as a group of governors with you and the executive leadership team. I just want to thank you for your energy, thank you for your commitment, thank you for the effort and the thinking that you've put into the work that's been done over the 5 years. Together we've made significant progress. We've moved beyond many of those challenges that we faced at the time that you joined us 5 years ago. So thank you for everything that you've done here. I think there'll be some legacy that will continue for a very long time as a result of the work that's been done. I note from the newspaper article earlier in the week that the very next thing you're going to do is take a holiday, so enjoy that. And all the best with whatever you might end up doing in the future. But thanks very much indeed for everything you've done here. Thank you.
Can I just?
Oh yes.
Can I just make
I'll
a
let you
comment? Is
close.
that all right?
Oh, Carleen, I'll be incredibly brief, but I just want to thank you for your amazing calmness, actually. I don't know how you stay that calm, but especially as I know that you don't drink coffee. or maybe that's the secret to it, I don't know.
There could be something in there.
But just also your lovely wry humour during moments when it's really, really important to keep that humour. And just Colleen, for those who don't know, is a qualified psychiatrist. Yeah, which has been incredibly helpful. I just want to say a huge thank you to you. I think you've helped keep us all sane.
Thank you, Pauline.
I don't want to lose the opportunity to say something because I would be the only woman in the chamber not to speak, and to actually express my respect for you as a woman in the role, this massive role that you've taken on. I hope you've got no regrets or regrets. And as Leanne said, you did get out and about. You've always been accessible. You've been to our community board several times, and in the beginning you certainly made yourself known to the city, and I actually remember you out on the rubbish trucks. Right. And I don't know if that's your future career, I don't know, but I hope not. But your door's always been open, and I totally support the things that Anne, Vicky and Leanne and others have said, that your calmness, your strength, has been just phenomenal to work with you, and really I wish you all the best as well. Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you.
Colleen, I'll give you the right of reply now.
Thank you. Thank you for all those really kind words. It's just lovely. I'll be very sad to leave. This has been an extraordinary job, despite all the challenges, and I do consider that it's been a real privilege to be able to be part of what's happened in Christchurch. And Christchurch as a city is very different to 5 years ago. As an organisation, this is a very different organisation in terms of what I perceive and experience. We've got a long way to go, but the difference is, I think, is really palpable. And I think the thing for me is the people. So we have a hugely talented expert staff who are really here because they're committed and passionate about what they do. They could earn a lot more money elsewhere. They could have a job that's not quite as hard. They wouldn't be publicly criticised, but they're here because they really want to make a difference. And the thing I've learned about local government is this is the place you can make a difference. I've worked in central government, I've worked in other agencies, but you're right there at the front line and engaging with people. And the services that we provide, as the Mayor said, just touches everybody's lives. And I keep talking about every decision we make every day impacts on people's lives, and that's true. And so we need to think about that when we do that. The other thing is that this was described to me as the toughest job in New Zealand and local government, most complex. And whilst there's a lot of criticism about decisions made, nobody else is, in terms of councils, have had to make the kind of decisions you've had to make. Balancing huge need, trying to build for the future, trying to run a city, but also with such constraints in terms of finances and not wanting to increase, have huge rates increases. So that's much more challenging, and the size of the decisions and the complexities of those, you don't see anywhere else in New Zealand. I mean, even when you think about Auckland, a lot of theirs are actually decisions made by their CCTOs, and they're split up. As opposed to, as a council, that's what you were doing. And that's what the organisation's trying to support you with. I've learnt a lot. I've been through 2 LDPs. I was quite traumatised by the first one.
So were we.
but I think the second one was a lot better, and 3 annual plans. All the events that we've experienced in Christchurch, and, you keep wondering, could we cope with anything more? But certainly the city has really managed all of those things. I've learned a lot about things I didn't expect to know about sewage and water and roads and engineering and those sorts of things. But I also keep saying that one of the things that I will take away is a real understanding about democracy. And I really did think it was about a tick on the page every 3 years, but it's not. It's about people being able to influence decisions, and so the people sitting in the audience here will know that. It really is about engagement, deep engagement, and being able to influence decisions on the things that impact on you. And so that's one of the things I take away amongst many more. I will miss this role. It has been challenging, and I really am looking forward to a holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think I'll just declare the motion carried by acclamation. Thank you.